Hey, I'm Raleigh and I'm 26, female. So, Patrick, my husband, and I go way back, like high school sweethearts, way back. We dated forever and decided college wasn't our jam and said, hey, let's just get hitched after we graduate. It seemed like a solid plan, and we were both young and dumb, so we both thought, why not? Life was all set for us. I had my dad's business to shower me with anything I could ever dream of, and Patrick was doing his thing too. Privileged? Oh, you bet. We never needed anything, living our best lives, thinking we were on top of the world. Now, Patrick, that guy, always wanted a bunch of kids, like fill the house with laughter and screams kind of dreams. He was an only child, so he was all about making sure his future kiddos had a gang of siblings to rely on. Cute, right? But here's where the story takes a twist. Try as we might, the whole baby making thing wasn't going our way. I had a string of miscarriages from 20 to 25, and let me tell you, that was a gut punch every single time. We were losing hope, and I started thinking Patrick would bail. One day, I straight up told him to go find someone who could give him the whole picket fence and bunch of kids deal. He got so pissed, y'all. You wouldn't believe it. Don't ever suggest crap like that to me again. Do you hear me? I guess he was in for the long haul. As I said, we have been trying practically ever since we got married, and it was exhausting, always being disappointed and heartbroken from the babies we've lost, failed to conceive. But everything changed the moment I turned 26. So there I was, celebrating my 26th birthday, thinking life's all fine and dandy. The next morning, I woke up with a hangover that could rival a truck hitting me, and I started throwing up. Now, I didn't even drink that much. I had one glass of wine, so I was wondering why I was so sick. Patrick was super concerned too, so we hauled ourselves to the hospital to figure out what was going on. And guess what? I wasn't throwing up from the alcohol. No siree, I was throwing up because I was pregnant. Panic mode set in, of course. I mean, the night before was a bit rowdy, yeah, I didn't drink as much, but with the way I was dancing, I'm sure the little tyke was being knocked up all over the place. But the doctors reviewed things and said the fetus should be fine and that I needed to show up for my scheduled checkups to make sure everything was peachy. Patrick and I were obviously over the moon, as you can imagine, but cautiously. I mean, we'd been down this path before and it wasn't very pretty. Nonetheless, we tried our best to be optimistic. This is what we've been waiting for, right? Why not enjoy every moment of it while it lasts? Everything was going just swell for us, but enter the dark cloud named Mariana, my mother-in-law, that threatened to rain on our parade. You might be wondering where she's been all this time and why I didn't mention her. Well, that's because for the majority of my dating, married life, she's been missing. She missed our wedding and even missed out on our graduation, not because she wanted to, but because she was in the psych ward. Yep, you heard it right. Mariana's got some severe BPD, making her have these erratic outbursts, and let's just say she was a bit on the crazy side. We'd visit her as often as we could, and with each visit she seemed to be getting better and better. So imagine this. We come back from the hospital all pumped about the baby, only to find a letter from the psych ward. They're saying Mariana's shown significant improvement and can be released back into society, completing her rehabilitation program, and that she needed to be taken care of by her next of kin or any other caretaker just to ensure that she's easing back into society well. Now, Patrick's father wasn't about to take her in. They got divorced when Patrick was like 6. So guess who's the next of kin? Yup, Patrick, and by proxy, me. Now, this whole setup felt like a drunk pitch for a sitcom. A couple struggling to conceive, now all of a sudden dealing with pregnancy and a mentally ill mother-in-law. What could possibly go wrong? Spoiler alert, everything, absolutely everything. So when we picked up Mariana from the psych ward, things started off great. We were catching up, having a grand old time in the car ride home, making up for lost moments, But the moment we walked through our front door, it was like a switch flipped in Mariana. She wasn't the usual apathetic or disillusioned, which are common symptoms for someone dealing with BPD or other mental illnesses. No, she was just irritated, and not just a little miffed. She was downright snarky and mean. Of course, people with BPD can also become irritated and frustrated, but the signs are much clearer than someone who just wanted to be rude for no apparent reason. But that was Mariana. She started judging everything in the house, criticizing how we decorated, and said that she would have done a much better job if she wasn't locked up for all those years. And boy, that really set her off. Talking about the psych ward. Once she started, she just couldn't stop. She started complaining about the psych ward, how awful it was, and how she despised every minute there. Then came the blame game. She pointed fingers at Patrick and me, saying it was our fault she ended up there. What? And now you two have to make it up to me for all those years I was alone and abandoned. I'm standing there like, what the heck? And Patrick, being the good son he is, tells me he'll handle it. He starts calming her down, assuming she's having another episode, but wasn't. She was fully present, aware of everything, and she just started cursing us both out. It left me heartbroken and confused. Later that night, when Patrick and I were in bed, I asked him if he thought the psych ward made a mistake releasing Mariana so early. Maybe it's just gonna take some time for her to adjust to everything. I mean, it can be a lot for someone who's had to watch paint dry for all those years. You're right. Maybe all she needs is a bit of time. And in the meantime, we should keep the pregnancy on the down low. It's a big change she might not be expecting, and we wouldn't want to rock the boat too much, Okay, babe, I got you. You're right. We'll tell her when the time is right. The right time never came, though. Every day it felt like things were getting worse. Patrick and I tried to be patient, thinking Mariana was just having a tough time adjusting to everything. But the more I dug into BPD behaviors and characteristics, the less it made sense. She wasn't lining up with the typical episodes you'd expect. It just seemed like she was using her disorder as an excuse to act intentionally crazy, which was not cool at all. She was lazy, rude, and downright crass. Dirty laundry was her way of decorating the place, and she acted like she was the queen of the castle. It was driving us nuts. And with me being pregnant, the smells, the noise, the bad behavior, it was all especially triggering for me. I put up with her antics for a solid 2 months, but enough was enough. I had to put my foot down. I told Patrick, I can't take it anymore. She's driving us insane. Us? Me and the baby. Count me in. I've had it up to here with her BS. Okay, great. So what are we going to do about her? Honestly, I don't know. This isn't good for me or the baby. You know how hard it is for us to have one, and the stress isn't making anything better. What if we told her about the baby? Really? Now? It might make her calm down and realize that there's a bundle of joy on the way, that she has to act right now. It might motivate her and make her happy. You're right. Maybe it's time we spill the beans. I don't admit this often, but my husband was making a lot of sense. I mean, what kind of mother doesn't want to be a grandma, right? It had to be the thing to make her act better. So to realize there were other people living in the house that she needed to consider and accommodate. So that was the plan. We found her sprawled out on the couch, her designated lazy spot, and we carefully and cautiously spilled the news. And let me tell you, it was like navigating a minefield. What's going on? Why are you hovering over me like that? Mama, we have some news that we wanted to share with you. What is it? Can't you see I'm busy? Well, we just wanted to tell you that we're having a baby. We were expecting something, anything, but we got nothing. Zilch, nada, nothing. She didn't jump up for joy. She didn't even yell. She just went back to watching TV. Did you hear me? I said we're gonna have... Yeah, I heard you the first time. Is that why you look so fat? Listen here, you little... Okay, I think that we can all just take a deep breath and appreciate the good news. Mama, aren't you excited? I don't care. Oh, why not? Why should I? Mariana's apathy really got under our skin, but it seemed to be hitting Patrick harder than me. After that baby news talk, he stormed off, and of course I followed. I tried comforting him, but he was seriously upset, wondering why his mother was being such a pain. It hurt, you know. We'd been trying for so long, and she knew it. Now that the good news was finally here, she couldn't care less. It was insane. I started thinking maybe she needed to go back to the hospital because no sane person acts that way. Patrick was livid, thinking she was being ungrateful and rude for no reason. I couldn't agree more. But I had a baby to cook, and Patrick had a business to run, so we decided to deal with Mariana the best we could while juggling other life priorities. We figured our love for her would be enough, but maybe we were approaching things all wrong. We tried spending more time with her and getting her into hobbies like crocheting and baking. Heck, we even took her to a butterfly sanctuary in the park. As well, of course, making sure she went to therapy. But she'd always cause a fuss, and it felt like anything we did just made her unhappy. So we kind of stopped trying so hard. And with the therapy, the jarring thing is that her therapist would report so much improvement that she probably would only need sessions once a week as opposed to the 4 sessions she was doing. Patrick and I were completely baffled, as you can imagine. It just wasn't making sense. Were all these doctors incompetent? Or was my sweet dear old mother-in-law just acting horrible with us? Now, I hit my 3rd month of pregnancy and the anxiety really kicked in. Normally, around this time, I'd be in danger zone of a miscarriage, so Patrick and I were on high alert, juggling Mariana's drama and dealing with the fear of losing another angel. Thankfully and surprisingly, after checkups and completing the 3rd month, stepping into my 2nd trimester, Patrick and I got the good news. Everything seemed normal and okay. I was set for a happy and healthy pregnancy. You can imagine we were over the moon. We'd never made it this far before, and this was obviously cause for a celebration. So Patrick decided to celebrate our progress by taking Mariana and me to this fancy restaurant. It was meant to be a double whammy, celebrating the good news about the pregnancy and breaking it to Mariana that everything was going well with the pregnancy for once. I tried rationalizing her nonchalant attitude the first time. Maybe she was just used to hearing sad news whenever we lost a baby and decided that she couldn't get her hopes up anymore in case she'd be disappointed all over again. I figured this time would be different, you know, since we got such good news on our progress. But when we shared the news once again, we got crickets. It was weird as heck, and Patrick was pissed all over again. He even ended dinner early because of how angry he was, so we drove back in silence, and when we got home, Patrick started pacing and wondering why his mom was always so distant, but always so animated and rude at the most inconvenient moments. I guess that was the BPD flaring up again. But again, as her therapist said, she's been doing significantly better, so why was she only doing this with us? I tried to calm him down, telling him not to let her bitter attitude ruin this moment for us. He eventually agreed, and we decided to keep doing our best to make her happy and listen to what her therapist had to say. 3 more months rolled by, and I was nearing the end of my 2nd trimester. I was wobbling around like a beach ball, and my feet were already looking like balloons. Being pregnant and dealing with a mother-in-law ain't no walk in the park, let me tell you. The more I was showing, the meaner she was getting, calling me a whale, a cow, all sorts of charming names. One night, Patrick was working late into the night, not unusual. He often came home pretty late anyway. Some days it was like 2 a.m., so it was just Mariana and me in the house, and it was a pretty chilled night. We were watching TV and I was munching on some grapes when Mariana decided to call me out for eating so much. I told her I was eating because I was hungry, but she insisted I was just making excuses for being a fat ass, which was rich coming from her. I mean, I was making organs all day. What was her excuse? The next thing I knew, we were in a full-blown argument. "You're no good for my son. Right back at you, Toots." "What's that supposed to mean?" "It means you're a horrible mother." That's when Mariana dropped a bomb. She had been typing up something for me, claiming it would make me a more productive person because in her eyes, I was just so lazy. She handed me a fat stack of papers she had managed to print out. It looked like a list. When I took a peek, it was a chores list specifically for the whale to complete. I started scanning through this list, and let me tell you, there were some wild things on there. Train the dust bunnies in the corners to do synchronized dances. Conduct a detailed interview with each piece of cutlery to assess its job satisfaction. Teach the plants to recite Shakespeare for optimal photosynthesis. Mariana, you can't possibly be serious. I'm dead serious. You need to do all of those things or else, and there are 9 more pages for you. So I suggest you better get started. That's when I knew that this woman was crazy. She clearly had lost her mind, and with her temperament, I no longer felt safe in the house. I calmly tried to tell her no, realizing that she might have been going through another episode, but this just made her even more angry. Mariana looked like she was about to murder someone. She stormed off to the kitchen, and for a moment I thought she had gone to get some water or something to calm her down. But when she came back out, she was holding a knife. I tried to get up as quickly as I could, given my state, and started backing away. The therapist had told us that in seemingly violent episodes like this, we should stay calm and try to soothe Mariana, even trying to call people for help if things get really scary. But none of the tricks were working, and fear was settling in. I looked at my phone, which was too far out of reach at that moment, and Mariana noticed. "You can't call for help now, Raleigh." Mariana kept pushing up on me, and I found myself by the front door. She told me to get out, claiming I was lazy and a waste of space. I obviously told her I couldn't do that, but she didn't care. She insisted, and eventually I caved. All I was wearing was sweatpants, a sports bra, and some fuzzy socks because it was winter and it was snowing like crazy outside. Mariana didn't care about any of that, apparently. She kept pushing me to leave and faced with a knife. I didn't want to find out what she might do, so with nowhere else to turn and physically incapable of fighting her, I had to step outside into the snowstorm just to calm her down. It was hell, instantly feeling like I was going to throw up. I made my way quickly to the neighbor's house, wanting to call Patrick since my phone was still inside. Luckily, they answered the door, even though it was pretty late, around 1 a.m. Honestly, God bless them for that, because I wouldn't know what to do otherwise. I called Patrick, and after the third try, he finally answered, asking who this was. I quickly explained what had happened to Patrick, urging him to come home quickly because Mariana was in the house alone, doing God knows what. Patrick said he'd be there in 10 minutes, and I could tell from the tone of his voice that he was livid. He arrived at the neighbor's house first, making sure I was okay. I was wrapped up in some of the neighbor's blankets and drinking some tea to help with the cold. We thanked them profusely and cautiously headed back inside the house. When we entered, Patrick saw Mariana laughing at something on the TV, and that's when he started losing it. He yelled at Mariana, asking her what the hell she was thinking, putting a pregnant woman out in the snowstorm like that. Mariana tried to act oblivious, but when Patrick mentioned that it was time for her to go back to the psych ward, it seemed that Mariana's facade began to crumble. "No, please, you can't do that." "Why not? You're clearly not well." "They'll help you, Mom. You just gotta be strong, okay?" "I lied, okay? I lied. I lied about everything." "What do you mean?" "The way I was treating you too. I was doing it on purpose." Mariana went on to explain how she had deliberately been acting crazy with us, confirming it by acknowledging that her therapist and even the people in the psych ward said she was fine. She obviously had BPD, that wasn't going away, but people with BPD don't act in the way she was acting. She was sobbing, admitting that the reason for her doing all that crap to us, being messy, loud, rowdy, and gross, was because she wanted, get this, attention. Yep, my entire pregnancy has felt like hell, all because this grown-ass woman wanted some attention. Feeling alone in the psych ward, she just wanted her son and her daughter-in-law, anybody to love her unconditionally, even her bad parts. This was confusing as hell for us. Why deliberately act crazy? Didn't she know we would report it and try to get her back in the psych ward? When Patrick asked her this, she said, I never actually thought you'd send me back there. I thought you missed me and you loved me and you wouldn't want to let me go back." "Of course we missed you. And of course we love you. And that's exactly why we would send you back, because you're clearly not well." "You're not listening to me. I'm fine. I'm not actually crazy. That 10-page chore list I gave you, yeah, I just made that up. And that time I put my dirty underwear in the blender, that was part of the performance too." "That's just sick, Mom. Why would you do this to us?" Mariana explained that when she was in the psych ward, there was nothing for her to do, and she felt like one little misstep and everyone was hounding her. She just wanted to feel free, but Patrick didn't appreciate this one bit, calling her evil and selfish, especially when it came to me and carrying a baby. Mariana admitted she was jealous of me and the baby because she knew we would be the center of attention once the baby was born, and she didn't know how to take that news. Then Mariana got on her knees and started begging us not to take her back to the psych ward, saying if she knew we were seriously considering it, she would have come clean months ago and stopped the funny business. "Mariana, honestly, I'm disgusted. How could you do that to me? To the baby? I might have gone overboard, I'll admit that, but you have to believe me." "No, I don't believe you, not for one bit. This is exactly what a crazy person would say." "But I'm trying to tell you, I'm not crazy." I told Mariana that I would call her therapist and tell her to come because it was an emergency, just so they could come and assess the situation, because I was so confused and exhausted by everything at that point. Patrick was still talking to his mom, and she was still on her knees begging and pleading, but I had to do what I had to do. Even if she was telling the truth and she actually was pretending to be crazy as some part of her twisted plan to get more attention, I still wanted to see her getting taken away, because if any of that was actually true, then I could never forgive her for that crap. She put me out of my house, for God's sake, in the freezing cold, and she expected forgiveness to come that easy? Maybe she really was crazy, if she ever believed that. She was sobbing on the floor when her therapist as well as a paramedic arrived at our home, not making her case look good if she was actually mentally stable, in my opinion. I explained the situation, showing them the list of chores she had given me as some form of proof that she was clearly unstable, because what she had typed up was complete nonsense, and I told them to take her back to the psych ward so that they could assess the situation. She was kicking and screaming the entire way to the van they brought, but luckily the paramedic could handle her. Patrick and I watched from the door, and the entire time she was yelling, "I'm not crazy!" But Patrick and I couldn't be too sure. In either case, I was glad I was getting that nut job out of my life. Part of me hoped that she was telling the truth about her pretending to be crazy, because that meant that she had landed right back in her personal hell as punishment for her actions.